All right, good morning, everyone. I will call the recommending committee meeting to order September 30th at 10 a.m. That's item number 1. Item number 2, we are in compliance with the open meeting law, correct? Thank you. Item number 3, bill number 2019-30 for possible action amends the Town Center Development Standards Manual to allow the use auto sales showroom in specific land use districts either as a conditional use or by means of a special use permit, and to allow the use valet parking in specific land use districts as a conditional use, sponsored by Councilwoman Fiore. Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. So this amendment will just add 2 uses that are currently not under the Town Center Development Manual up in the Town Center area. Specifically, we'll add the auto sales showroom use and valet parking. To clarify, an auto sales showroom is just that. It's an area where you would go to view a car. It is not increasing auto sales, which are very specific and limited within Town Center in terms of a new car franchise lot. In valet parking, this one is particularly of interest because we have the hospital out there. Right now, they don't have the ability to have a valet parking operation. This would provide them that ability, as well as other uses in the future within Town Center that may wish to employ a valet parking service. So with that, this amendment's in order, and I'll take any questions.
Thank you. This is public hearing. Anyone from the public want to say anything? I'll close the public hearing. Any questions or comments up here? Do I have a motion?
Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I motion to approve item number 3.
All those in favor? Oh, wait a minute. We'll do this electronically. keep going back to the way we used to do it. All right, go ahead and vote. And post. Okay, motion carries unanimously. This will be sent to the full City Council on October 16th, 2019. Item number 4, bill number 2019-31 for possible action amends various provisions of the Unified Development Code to provide clarification and standardization relating to distance separation standards and measurements, clarify when access-related standards refer to vehicle accident access or pedestrian access or both, and establish additional standards regarding the interpretation of terms. Proposed by Robert Summerfield. Robert Summerfield.
Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, so this amendment is as a result of council action on an appeal of a director's interpretation where there was felt that there was some ambiguity as to the code when the word access was used. As a part of that clarification, the staff from the planning department working with the city attorney's office, has consolidated. We have, in the current code, we have many places where we reiterate the same thing as it relates to how distance is measured. So this amendment before you today is just a technical correction, and it addresses and adds specificity as to when access is referring to vehicular, pedestrian, or both vehicular and pedestrian. As I was discussing with the Mayor Pro Tem just before the meeting started, there are 2 other amendments that are currently in different stages of process. One is where the council has asked for a briefing on and to determine whether or not an amendment will come forward on how we do the policy about distance separation. Currently, we measure distance separation from lot line to lot line in almost all cases. And so there's a conversation that's being had at a policy level amongst council about do we go to something similar to what Clark County has, which is different than what we have, and some other components. But that is more of a policy conversation, whereas this is a technical correction to forego us having any additional appeals related to what the term access means. One other amendment that we have, again, is I was having a conversation with Mayor Pro Tem before the meeting, is there's another amendment that is going to be coming forward. I believe it's either just been to Planning Commission or will be at Planning Commission this first meeting in October, that addresses updating distance separation for marijuana establishments, both in part to comply with some new state law, as well as some interest members of the council to address distance separation between like uses. This amendment, I do want to be clear, is just at addressing the technical issue of how access is used in our code, and then it streamlines the various provisions on defining how distance separation is measured, but it's not a part of that larger policy conversation that council will be having in the month of October, is I believe when we're currently scheduled to brief on. And with that, I would recommend approval and take any questions.
Mr. Chairman? Yes. Mr. Chairman, Tom Perigo, Executive Director of Community Development. There was an item before council that in the minds of some who presented that item, there was some ambiguity in the code. And at that time, council acted on the item, but directed staff, and this is why Mr. Summerfield sponsored this item, the mayor and council directed staff to clear up that ambiguity and at the same time bring back some options regarding the policy conversation that Mr. Summerfield is discussing. So this was in response to direction from mayor and council to clean up that ambiguity. So it's just simply something in the code that makes it perfectly clear what access means.
So this doesn't actually change anything? I mean, it's just wording?
It does not. In the code previously, there was a question whether or not access could mean pedestrian access into a parcel when the intent of the code, which many people felt was clear, it meant vehicular access. This takes any question out, and it's just clearly what the code intent and the intent of council when it adopted the code was vehicular access, and Mr. Summerfield can give more detail if you'd like, but that's essentially what it is.
So how did you decide which one's vehicular access and which one's pedestrian access, or both? Who decides that?
So in some places in the code, pedestrian access is appropriate, and that has been left alone. In regards to questions of whether or not you're eligible for a waiver on certain protected uses, it said pedestrian, it referred to a definition that said pedestrian or vehicular when the intent of those particular code provisions is and always has been vehicular access into that site. And again, Ms. Summerfield can give you probably more clear definition, but the code has always been quite clear in that regard. It just referred back to a definition, and the applicant at that time used that definition to sort of say that there was some ambiguity, which that's all we're clearing up.
Mr. Chairman, exactly as Executive Director Perigo said, so in all cases, from a technical standpoint, the code was correct, but because there was some ambiguity with the way the word "or" was used in the definition of access, that's why we've gone back and we've clarified in any case where access meant vehicular, we put the word vehicular before access. In any case where it was pedestrian, we put pedestrian in front of access. And anywhere where it actually referred to access for either pedestrians or vehicular, we've gone back and we put in both words there. And then, like I said, the other piece of this is it does rearrange. Again, it's just the words, but it does rearrange where we had spelled out in a bunch of different places how distance is measured. We've now put it all in one place. We haven't changed how distance is measured. We've just put it all in one place, so there's not 12 different places or how many ever different places there were where that distance measurement information was. I will point out, Mayor Pro Tem's office did point out that there was, I think, an attempt at a correction for the measurement related to domesticated or non-domesticated animals, and I think there was an error there, and we're going to fix that as a First Amendment before this is voted on at City Council. But in the absence of that one clarification that actually was an error, I think everything else is, again, just a technical rearrangement of the words. There's no substantive changes to your current code.
Okay, so point out exactly what this change is going to be, so we know what it is? What are you talking about? What page?
Absolutely. So on page 4, and I apologize, let's see, hold on one second. So on page 4 of the bill, under section 3, actually section 3 starts on page 2, I believe it is, animal keeping and husbandry. There was on line 3, there was an addition of lot containing A, and it was, I think it was an attempt to clarify where a residential dwelling, school, individual care center was located. However, as has been pointed out by Mayor Pro Tem's staff, that could then result in a significant and unintended distance separation between,
Like 200 acres.
yeah, between the location of where the secured animal is and one of these facilities. So again, that will be taken out in a First Amendment that will, would come forward before this is voted on by council.
Okay.
So, Mr. Chair.
Let me just see if there's any public comment first, and then we'll, so anybody from the public want to say anything? Okay, close public comment. All right.
Thanks. Okay, so the reason why I think that this needs to be delayed, and understand Mr. Perigo and Mr. Summerfield, they're two of our top brilliant staff members, and they do clean up language and stuff. But at the same time, since we've looked at this, the issues that we're having, once we solidify again in an ordinance clarifying language that with this distance separation from parcel to parcel, that literally makes it more difficult as we go and work on the ordinance to match the county where it's door to door, so more business has more opportunity with the distance separation, as we're also looking at a distance separation for different companies and different types of business in the city. I think we're jumping on this. I think for 2 weeks for both of you two to come into my office and go through this verbiage, like, I really need to know, what is a non-domesticated animal? Are we talking about a lion? Okay, we don't have a lion. Okay, so because you've put this verbiage in there, now we're looking at, and of course you just said you're going to amend it, but here's the thing, if we're not reading these carefully, if we're not going through the 4-page bill that you just sent us as a cleanup language, the non-domesticated animal is going to get passed through, then someone's going to want to do something, and they're going to have to be 200 acres away. So 2 weeks, gentlemen, is not a lot to ask for you two to come into my office to clarify this language, to then let me speak to the councilman and the chairman about distance separation on other things, especially if the majority of the council want door to door, not parcel to parcel. So I think that we are putting the cart before the horse, and I would ask the chairman for minimally 2 weeks for us to go back and look at it.
Is that your motion?
That's my motion.
What's the recommending in 2 weeks?
For us
October
to come
14th.
back amended,
October what?
14th.
Okay, let's just debate, so the motion is to debate October 14th, you okay with that? Okay, go ahead and vote. And post. Okay, motion carries unanimously, very good. Nothing wrong with the bay and stuff. Item number 5, bill number 2019-32 for possible action amends LVMC 11-68105 pertaining to expressive activity within the pedestrian mall to clarify that the use of amplified sound is permitted in connection with such activities subject to the same maximum noise levels that apply to street performers, proposed by Brad Jerbick, City Attorney. Morning.
you gotta repeat
there you go.
all of that.
Can you hear me now? There we go. Good morning, Chair, members of the committee. Elias George, Deputy City Attorney. Bill number 2019-32 seeks to amend Chapter 1168 of the Las Vegas Municipal Code that largely addresses the FSE pedestrian mall. Specifically, this amendment seeks to clarify that aspect of the law, subpart 105, governing those engaging in expressive conduct and giving them the ability and the right to use an amplification device and the exercise of their free speech out on the pedestrian mall. A number of years ago, a number of you may remember that we substantively amended Chapter 1168 and passed substantive amendments relating to those conducting street performances, otherwise known as buskers. And that provision allowed those conducting street performances the ability to use a loudspeaker within reasonable limits in the exercise of their presentation. It came to our attention a number of weeks ago, perhaps about a month or so ago, that there is an ambiguity in the law, meaning that those conducting expressive activity, not so much street performers, not having the ability to use an amplification device. So with this amendment, we hope to treat both of those engaging expressive activity the exact same as those conducting street performances in the exercise of the First Amendment free speech, the ability to use a loudspeaker within reasonable limits. That doesn't mean that they can use a loudspeaker however loud they so choose. If you like, I can also direct your attention to Las Vegas Municipal Code 1168-107, which, excuse me, which actually puts in specific limits for those conducting street performances. Our staff a number of years ago put in certain decibel limits. It's reading at 107 decibels measured at 1 foot away and 85 decibels measured at about 25 feet away. So we hope to use those exact same limitations that have already previously gone through great scrutiny, assistance with the ACLU, and also have passed the City Council a number of years ago, and just apply those exact same limitations to those conducting expressive conduct. And it's with that we would recommend approval of this amendment. Thank you.
Go ahead.
How does our Fremont experienced neighbors in the HOA feel about this bill?
My understanding is we haven't heard. We're attempting to fast track this minor amendment through Mayor Pro Tem. The City of Las Vegas is currently engaged in a First Amendment free speech litigation matter in front of Judge Mahan in federal court, in which there was an individual out on Fremont Street that attempted to exercise his First Amendment free speech by proselytizing through the speaking of his religious freedom and attempted to use a amplification device. Although that gentleman wasn't cited under Title 11, he was cited under an inapplicable code by Metro, which doesn't really impute the City of Las Vegas. It was during the course of that litigation that we uncovered this desperate treatment between those engaging in expressive conduct and those conducting street performances, and we just hope to clarify that minor ambiguity.
Okay, I'll open up for public comment. Anyone want to comment on this? I'll close public comment. Okay, is there a motion up here?
Motion to send it to council.
All right, there's a motion to approve. Go ahead and vote. And post. Motion carries. This item will be sent to the City Council on October 2nd, which is in 2 days. All right.
Zachary,
Let's see.
you have a moment.
Citizen participation. Any citizen participation? Anybody? All right. Close citizen participation, and we are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Good evening.
Very good.